Hello everyone, this is God in the Center with Matthew. And today, go on, get over. Get over. Get over. I'm going to sit on you. Go on, get. Anyways, I guess you won't sit with me. I got all three of my dogs back now. Fence is going up tomorrow, so thankful for God for that, because I didn't know how it was going to work out, but it worked out. So I'm going to be finishing up my little lesson with David, then we'll probably end up coming back to 2 Samuel once, but I'm finished up 1 Samuel. I did it in 2 parts. 2, 3, or 4 section parts. This is the 3rd section. I'm going to actually be reading out of 27, 28. A little bit of each one of them to the end of 30. So I'm going to read the whole thing of 27, I believe, is what I've got here. So we're going to start off with chapter 27, verse 1. And David said in his heart, "Now I shall perish someday by the hands of Saul. There is nothing better for me than I should speedily escape to the land of the Philistines, and Saul would despair of me to seek me any more in any part of Israel. So I shall escape out of his hand." Then David arose and went over with the 600 men who were with him to Ashlight, the son of Macedon, king of Gath. So David dwelt with Ashlight at Gath, he and his men, each man with his household, and David with his 2 wives, Aminat and Jezreelite, and Abigail, the charmless Nabal's widow. And it was told Saul and David had fled to Gath, so he sought him no more. So David and Saul's been fighting this whole book. They've been fighting, but what's so bad is, like, David's now fled into he's done killed a bunch of Philistines, so now he's having to go live with them because it's so bad where he's at. You know, he's so bad where he's at. He killed Goliath, he was a Philistine, and now he's going and hanging out with them. It's weird how that stuff happens sometimes. Sometimes, because Saul's supposed to be part of his family, because David married Saul's daughter. So David's actually a son-in-law. And I've never been married, so I don't know how it works, but evidently sometimes it's better to go sleep with the enemy, stay with the enemy, than to even be involved in in-laws. It's what it's looking like here. I don't know. It's just what's going on here. So then David says to Ashlight, "If I have found favor in your eyes, let them give me a place in some town in this country, that I may dwell there. For why should your servant dwell in the royal city with you?" As Ashlight gave Ziklag that day, therefore Ziklag had belonged to the king of Judah to that day. Now the time that David dwelt in the country of the Philistines was 1 full year and 4 months. And David and his men went up and raided the Jeshurites of Gizrite and the Amalekites. Just pay attention to that, because he's just stirring trouble up everywhere he goes. This man is David, and David's a man after God's own heart. He's got 3 women. He's got 2 wives, and then somebody's widow. He's fooling around with this. This is a weird little time, and to be a man of God, and this is what's going on. And David and his men went up and raided. Oh, I read that. For those nations were the inhabitants of the land from the old, as you go, sure, even as far as the land of Egypt, where David attacked the land. He left neither man nor woman alive, but he took away the sheep, the oxen, and the donkeys and camels and apparel in return, and came to Ashlight. Then Ashlight would say, where have you made a raid today? And David would say, against the southern area of Judah, or against the southern area of Jerusalemites, or against the southern area of the Kenites. David would have neither man nor woman alive. So bring news to Gath, saying, lest they should inform on us, saying, thus David did, and thus was his behavior all the time he dwelt in the country of the Philistines. So Hashraph believed David, saying, he has made his people Israel utterly abhor him, therefore he will be my servant forever. So David's done. Now he's joined the enemy's side because he's fearful of Saul, and this enemies took David in because he's got the 600 men that's just so powerful. These dudes just crumple anybody that stands in their way. You know, it's a bad situation for everybody involved in this right now. God is with him, and you know, there's a girl at work. Heard her talking. They was talking about church or something the other day in the break room, and you know, she's a lesbian. She says, well, I can't ever go to church because I've done so much bad that you know, the Lord never can forgive me or something like that. And I turned around and I wasn't talking about this Saul. I said, well, you know, Saul murdered, which is Paul, Saul of Tarsus, said he murdered thousands of Christians and he became an apostle of Jesus. And you see what's going on here, that King David is, or he ain't king yet, but David is killing all these people, robbing and looting, and just doing what he has there to say alive, these 600 men. He was supposed to be on Saul's side. If Saul had just kept him, man, everything would be good for Israel right now. So it just shows that, like, God will use you, and God does love you no matter what you've done and what you're what you're doing. Sometimes there's necessary evils. I don't know exactly what was going on with this situation, but he was allowing all this stuff to happen. He gave Saul power, and then he's going to take the power away. You're fixing to see. It's I'm going to do some more reading, but, like, you know, it don't matter what you've done. God can use you, and maybe God's even using you now and you don't even know it. He may be using you to help somebody else out. So the Philistines might have been needing some help at the time or something. So God allowed they've been getting whooped up on so long, and then this particular you know, Saul has been at him. So I guess for whatever reason, God allowed David to go to the Philistines. All this rift between them. So we got to watch out what's going on in our world and our society, you know, as our country, who we elect as our next president, because we could have peace, we could have major war, or we could have famine. We could have a lot of bad things happen. We choose that. We choose who, like these Philistines chose David to help him out, and it was a smart move at the time. I mean, it was, like, and you're going to see where they decide to finally cut him loose. I'm not trying to give too much of the story away, but, like, sometimes you need a real strong alpha male to take control, you know, of situation. And we have an alpha male right now trying to take over it, you know, try to take over the presidency, and I believe we need an alpha male in place of the country right now. It don't matter what you think about him. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to mix this politics with religion, but I'm just trying to get to what I'm seeing. Some of this stuff stuff's going on here. I just opened my eyes. I wasn't even thinking about talking. It just came to me just now. You know, sometimes God will put very, very, very strong-willed men in positions to carry out whatever it is, because a weak man ain't gonna do what David did. A weak man ain't gonna do what Trump did. You know, I just don't know. Like I said, I'm not trying to endorse him or nothing, but I do know he's an alpha male and he's not weak. He's got some characteristics of David, and you know, David's got these women, and that's what they said was going on. He's a womanizer and all that stuff. So there are some characteristics, and I've had some of these characteristics as well with some of the stuff that David's going on. That's why I said I relate to him so much. And there's a lot of men that relate to this stuff. that goes on. You know, God doesn't necessarily just love us any less. Sometimes we got to do what we got to do to survive. So I'm gonna go on to verse 15 of chapter 28 now. Now Samuel. So I'm gonna give you. I'm not gonna read all this stuff leading up to this story, but Saul had got rid of all the wizards and all the prophets and all the soothsayers and stuff. So he had to go change wardrobes and dress up as something where he didn't look like Saul. And he sent one of his servants to go get one of his soothsayers, wizards or something like that, to come bring Samuel back from the grave where he could talk to him. So he's tricked this lady. So we're at verse 15 now, after he's done tricked her. Now Saul said to Samuel, now Samuel said to Saul, "Why have you disturbed me by bringing me up?" He brought him back from the dead to talk. And Saul answered, "I am deeply distressed, for the Philistines make war against me, and God has departed from me and does not answer me any more, neither by a prophet nor by my dreams. Therefore I called you, that you may reveal to me what I should do." See, God can have favor over you, but He can also take that favor away because you became so wicked. You know, he's tried to kill David, I think 3 times already by now, and that's not what God wants him to do. If you keep going, God will take that favor off of you. I pray to God never takes favor off me, because I'm telling you that without God's favor I would not be nowhere. Like this, just like this fence. I was spinning my wheels trying to figure out how I'm going to buy a fence, and the fence with prices was anywhere from they started out at about $10,000 and they jumped down. I finally got one at a really good price, I think $3,200. I'm very happy with that. I wish it was a little bigger, but it's big enough for what I need. And God just it all worked out some kind of way, because there was a part of this year I didn't have a job, and it was a whole lot of stuff that I would not have got through with all this without God's help. And God has had His favor on my life this year. I don't want Him ever taken away, because this could have been a very catastrophic year for me, and it hasn't been. So I'm going on to verse. He's taking His favor. He's sitting there telling him now. He's got so bad. He's got so scared. He's paying somebody, bringing somebody from the dead to talk to him. Then Samuel said, "So why do you ask me, seeing the Lord has departed from you and has become your enemy?" So the Lord can become your enemy. "And the Lord has done for Himself as He spoke by me. For the Lord has torn the kingdom out of your hands and given it to your neighbor David, because you did not obey the voice of the Lord, nor executed His fierce wrath upon Amalek, before the Lord has done this thing to you. This day more of the Lord will also deliver Israel with you into the hands of the Philistines. And tomorrow you and your sons will be with me. The Lord will also deliver the army of Israel into the hands of the Philistines." Immediately Saul fell full length on the ground, and was dreadfully and afraid because of the words of Samuel. And there was no strength in him, for he had eaten no food all day or all night. So, so Saul's finding out that his time is about over. He's done even woken a dead man to find out what's going on and try to save his hide, instead of just doing what God's asked him to. Sometimes we'll do everything but talk to God and discuss with God and do what God says. Sometimes we'll do everything but that, and then we want to call on God when things get bad, because we hadn't been doing what we're supposed to be doing, or we hadn't been communicating with Him. Saul evidently had quit communicating with Him, so God quit communicating with him. Or he wasn't listening to Him. There's a whole lot of things said that he wasn't doing what God asked him to do. So God can take His favor off of you. You can have God's favor, and you can have it taken away. I don't ever want to get in that situation. Saul's got himself in a bad situation. And there's something else I noticed that it said, Saul fell full length on the ground. And I've heard a couple other people, when they brought these children to life, one time the guy stretched out on top of them, and there's another part where the guys lay flat, so just kneeling down, they lay flat on the ground and do this praying. So there must be some type of power in that we hadn't actually been taught. I've seen this laying down instead of kneeling down 3 times in this Bible. So and that's when the stuff is the dire straits is when they're doing this. So I don't know. I've did it a few times to just because I've seen it here. There's got to be something to that though. So I'm going to verse 21 now. A woman came to Saul and saw that he was severely troubled, and said to him, Look, your maidservant has obeyed your voice, and I have put my life in the hands. I've put my life in my hands, and heeded the words with which you spoke to me. Now therefore, please heed also the voice of your maidservant, and let me set a piece of bread before you, and eat, that you may have strength when you go your way. But he refused and said, I will not eat. His servants, together with the woman, urged him, and heeded their voice. Then he arose to the ground and sat on the bed. Now the woman had fattened a calf in the house, and she had hastened to kill it. And she took flour and kneaded it, and baked unleavened bread from it. So she brought it before Saul and his servants, and they ate. Then they arose and went away that night. So, I don't know, Saul's got to where he's not even wanting to eat. He's so worried. I guess he's trying to fast, because there is, so Saul does know God, and fasting is a part of trying to get over something. So Saul's just so far past that, evidently, that like there's no coming back from whatever he's got going on. He's just stepped that far out of bounds with God right now. So I'm going to go to, we have Jesus now though. Jesus wasn't around this time, so just my message is try not to mess up with God so bad that he stops putting his favor, stops giving you favor. Then I'm going to go to verse 6 of chapter 29. Then Asherah called David and said to him, Surely as the Lord lives, you have been upright, and your going and coming in with me and my army is good in my sight. For to this day I have found no evil in you since the day you're coming to me. Nevertheless the Lord's, not God, the Lord's, he's talking about his bosses, do not favor you. Therefore return now and go in peace, that you may not displease the Lord of the Philistines. So God said to Asherah, But what have I done? And to this day, what have you found in your servant as long as I've been with you, that I may not go and fight against the enemies of the Lord, of my king, of my Lord and King? Asherah answered and said to David, I know that you are as good in my sight as an angel of God. Nevertheless, the prince and the Philistines have said, He shall not go with us to the battle. Now therefore rise early in the morning, and your master, with your master's servants, who come with you, and have stood with you up early in the morning, and have light depart. So David and his men rose early to depart that morning to return to the land of the Philistines, and the Philistines went to Jezreel. So they didn't want David going because they know that David's done let Saul go 3 times. They're going to kill Saul. Saul's done cause so much trouble, and then not only his best buddy's Jonathan, Saul's son. So They knew they couldn't take David. They knew that they could not take David because David would more than likely, even though Saul's been trying to kill him, he knows that he's going to. That's the only thing that I can say that maybe reason why he's the man after God's own heart. Because when God tells him to do something, he does do it. You know, he's playing around. He's doing all this stuff. When God tells him strictly not to kill Saul, he hadn't killed him, or he knows Saul's been anointed by him. He hadn't killed him. He's had several chances to kill him. So it's like just us obeying. Like Danny was preaching today about when do you own your own sin, and this sort of goes along with it. It's like when do you take take ownership of this, ownership of what you're doing. You know, I really did like that lesson today, and like some sin is hard to take ownership of. You know, David's doing some stuff, Saul's doing some stuff, and like at some point, when are you gonna give into what God's telling you to do? Because I know God's put something in your heart, because He does it to me. If you're a Christian, God's put some in your heart saying this ain't right, and some stuff like I've told you is really hard to overcome. But we have to work at it. If it's nothing but like just picking at it till it finally is shaped into what we need it shaped into. You know, we can't do it in a day. Nothing's built in a day. So I'm gonna go to verse 16 now. And when this is verse 16 of chapter 30. And when he brought him down, there they were, spread out over the land, eating and drinking and dancing, because of all the great spoil which they had taken from the land of the Philistines and from the land of Judah. Then David attacked them from twilight until the evening of the next day. Not a man of them escaped, except 400 young men who rode on the camels and fled. So David recovered all the Amalekites and had carried away, and David rescued his 2 wives, and nothing of theirs was lacking, either small or great, sons or daughters, spoils, anything which they had taken from them. David recovered all. Then David took all the flocks and the herds they had driven before those livestock and said, this is David's spoil. Now David came to the 200 men who had been so weary that they could not follow David. So David did this with 400 men, as he left 200 behind, whom they had made to stay at the brook Besser. So they went out to meet David and to meet people who were with him. And when David came near the people, he greeted, and the wicked and worthless men of those who went with David answered and said, because they did not go with us, we do not give them any of the spoil, and we have recovered, except for every man's wife and children, that they may lead them away and depart. But David said, my brethren, you shall not do so. What the Lord has given us, who has preserved us and delivered us into the hands of the troops that came against us, for who will heed you in this matter? But as part is who goes down to the battle, so shall his part be who stays with the supplies, and who shall be alike. So it was from that day forward he made a statute and ordinance for Israel to that day. So see, David was a very fair man. There was 200 men that had been wore out that stayed and didn't go to battle. They stayed with the supplies and stuff, and the guys went to battle. The 400 went to battle, was trying to say, well, they shouldn't get nothing but the wives the wives and their children that we got back from them. They done went and killed everything. The only thing they went and raided and killed. There was like a couple. They said 400 boys escaped or something on camels, but. So David wasn't a greedy man up in this point. We'll see what happens later on, but David's doing wrong, but he's doing right. If that makes sense. I mean, you know, war's really hard to understand, but God was with David because these little 600 men was the baddest men on the planet. You couldn't do that with 600 men today. I don't think what he did. But God was with him is the reason why. He knew that him and his army couldn't do nothing without God. I mean, David snuck into camps with just him and one other guy, and could have killed Saul 2 times that I just read about earlier. So he's God. He knows God's with him, and Saul had somehow forgot God was with him, and Saul thought he was in charge until he finally figured out he needed God. Have you got a big head and, like, you know, thought that you was everything and that you was doing everything? Because I know that it's not hard to do. I've humbled myself, and I realize that everything that I've got or everything that I've done is to God, and I don't ever want to forget that. People forget that stuff. They get a big head, they get a little money, they get some kind of big promotion or something like that, and all of a sudden they did, and they don't need God no more. And that's not the way to be, because God can give or God can take away, just like that. I know that I had a really good job and it got took away, but it was for a reason. Sometimes stuff happens for a reason, and we just have to realize that and thank God anyways, because eventually, as long as we have a good attitude towards God, I really do believe it's going to work out for you. So I'm going to go to verse 31 now. This is the end of it. Now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines and fell slain on Mount Gariba. Then the Philistines followed hard after Saul and his sons. The Philistines killed Jonathan. Jonathan is, like I told you, David's best friend. He wouldn't let that happen. There's no way he would have ever let that happen. Abrite and Michaela, Saul's sons. So all Saul's sons are dead now. The battle became fierce against Saul, and the archers hit him, and he was severely wounded by the archers. Then Saul said to his armbearer, "Draw your sword and thrust it through me with it, lest the uncircumcised men come and thrust me through and abuse me." But his armbearer would not, for he was greatly afraid. Therefore Saul took a sword and fell on it. And when his armbearer saw that Saul was dead, he also fell on a sword and died with him. So Saul, his 3 sons and armbearer all men had died together the same day. So it's now, he couldn't leave David be. He couldn't be friends with David. Sometimes it's better to let stuff just go and try to get along with people than to keep fighting and fighting, because it eventually took Saul and his whole family out. His whole family died, or his son and children. He's got no heirs to the kingdom now. David's fixing to take it over. David didn't have to kill him. God didn't make David kill him. Saul killed himself. Sometimes the enemy will take themselves out because they went at you so hard. I've got 2 people that I'm waiting for them to take themselves out. They I've forgiven them and all that stuff, but I just know one day they're going to take themselves out for what they've done to me, and I've forgiven them though, and I don't wish nothing bad upon them, but I don't know why that came to my head, but it just did, because this is why I've been doing this lesson, because I've been in similar situations where maybe I could have took somebody out, but I chose not to, and it ended up being better for me in the long run. And anyways, I love this. I love David, man. David, I relate so much to David because I've did some wicked things, and I've also loved God, And David's done a lot of wicked things, and he's a womanizer, and he's basically a male whore at this point. He's got 3 women, and it gets on even more, even into the further on in this. I'm gonna finish reading the rest of this chapter because there's something that's very important down here, or I'm confused about. It's important, and I'm a little confused about it myself. And when the men of Israel who were on the side of the valley and those who were on the other side of the Jordan saw the men of Israel had fled, and that Saul and his sons were dead, they forsook the cities and fled, and the Philistines came and dwelt in them. So it happened the next day the Philistines came to strip the slain, and they found Saul and his 3 sons fallen on the Mount Gilboa, and they cut off their heads and stripped them of their armor, and sent word throughout the land of the Philistines to proclaim in the temple and the idols and among the people, and they put his armor in the temple of the Asherah, and then fastened his body to the wall of Beth-shan. So when the inhabitants of Jeshbel-Gilead heard that the Philistines had done to Saul, all the valiant men arose and traveled at night, and took the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons from the wall of Beth-shan, and they came to Jeshbel and burned them there. Then they took their bones and buried them under the tamarisk tree at Jeshbel, and fasted 7 days. So they burned the bodies. I've been told it says nowhere in the Bible to cremate. Right there, what was that? They burned these guys' bodies. They buried the bones. They didn't have these fierce furnaces like they do now, so they burned the bodies and they buried the bones. So it's really you can take it how you are. It's a little confusing because they burned and buried. So the gist of this lesson was just don't get out of God's favor. Whatever you do, because you see what happens. If God's blessing you and God's doing all stuff for you, then just try to stay on track. Just try to stay the right way. Don't veer off the track. They was talking about a guy in church today about he quit coming to church to chase money, and I don't really understand what they're talking about, but don't let money get in the way between you and God, is all I'm saying. And don't let people get in the way of you and God. And don't be bad to people. Love everybody. You ain't got to trust everybody, but try to do the right thing, and try to do right by God, and keep God on your side. And if you hadn't been baptized, get hold of me. We'll get you dunked in some water. We'll get you baptized, and that's the way to get reborn. I'm going to be going back to the New Testament, Old Testament start with for at least a few weeks. And I just want to tell everybody I love, praise, and honor Jesus. And I want to tell everybody I love y'all. It's just it's a wicked world we live in. And us as Christians, we have to stick together, and we need to love each other unconditionally, just as Jesus loves us unconditionally. Somebody that's been commenting on some of my videos, I guess her and her son is there's something going on there. I'm not really sure, but I've been trying to keep her and her son in prayer. If anybody is watching, maybe they can add her to the prayer list. I think she's in Texas and he's up in South Carolina. She's wanting to go, but I told her, I said, everybody's got a free will, and I keep you in prayer, but that's all I can do. And if you got any prayer requests, you can just put some prayer requests on the link below, and comment, and message me. I get to you, and we can talk if there's anything that needs to be said. And I'm here to minister to people. And like I said, everybody have a blessed day. If you like what you see, like, share, and subscribe. God bless everyone.